very good afternoon to you and welcome from the studios of Atlantic Television Network in Port Harcourt. This is ATN International News for today. To begin, let's take a look at the biggest stories making the headlines. Egypt's Sisi replaces head of powerful intelligence agency. Iran's foreign minister visits Egypt. George blocks election rules backed by Republicans. Texas man faces execution after clemency plea fails. Netherlands plans to send asylum seekers to Uganda. Vietnam real estate tycoon found guilty of fraud. Israeli fire kills 11 in Gaza City. These and many more stories to come your way in a moment. Do stay with us. And now on the details, let's take a look at Africa. Egypt's President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi named Major General Hassan Mahmoud Rashad as head of the powerful General Intelligence Agency on Wednesday, appointing the outgoing Chief Abbas Kamel as an advisor to the presidency. ATN gathered that the agency played a leading role under Sisi, handling foreign policy matters including conflicts in Gaza, Sudan and Libya, as well as domestic security issues linked to a long-running crackdown on political dissent. Rashad previously served as a deputy to Kamel and, according to two security sources, had taken over management of important files, including warming relations between Egypt and Iran. It was not immediately clear what impacts the change could have, but Sisi has depended heavily on Kamel, who was a fixture in meetings with senior foreign leaders and at summits. Kamel was often sent on trips abroad as an envoy. Kamel, 68 years old, was appointed head of the intelligence agency in 2018, before which he worked in military agency and was director of Sisi's office. He had recently asked to delegate some of his heavy workload after suffering health problems, the security sources said. Stalled negotiations for a ceasefire deal in Gaza, in which Egypt has been a mediator along with the United States in Gaza and Qatar, have been handled by another senior intelligence official and overseen by Kamel. Pictures released along with a statement by the presidency showed Rashad and Kamel meeting Sisi and Rashad swearing an oath in front of the president. Rashad is a graduate of Cairo's Military Technical College, a traditional training ground for leaders of the intelligence services. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi landed in Cairo late on Wednesday for talks with Egyptian officials, the first such visit in years as part of a Middle Eastern tour amid concerns of a wider confrontation in the region with Israel. Tension of the nature of an expected Israeli attack on Iran in retaliation for Iran's missile attack on October 1st that followed a rapidly spiraling conflict between Israel and Iranian-backed Hezbollah in Lebanon. Araghchi arrived for important talks with Egypt's high-ranking officials that will be held today, that is Thursday, after stops in countries including Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Iraq and Lebanon. Relations between Egypt and Iran have generally been fraught in recent decades, but the two countries have stepped up high-level diplomatic contacts since the eruption of the Gaza crisis last year as Egypt's aggression. On Wednesday, while opposition parties cried fraud and one called for a strike. Frelimo's presidential candidate, Daniel Chapo, was widely expected to win the October 9th election. The party has governed Mozambique since 1975 and has been consistently accused of rigging elections, which it denies. Full results are expected on October 21st. Frelimo are not going to hand over power to anyone. They want to continue to control power, finance, business, oil, gas, diamonds, rubies, Mondlane said in a video broadcast on his social media pages. To show that the people are actually ruling, we will paralyze all activity on Monday, he said. Presidential candidate Lutero Simango of the Democratic Movement of Mozambique, a small opposition party, said that he would challenge the results in court. A Frelimo spokesperson did not immediately reply to a request for comment. In public remarks on Friday, Chapo called for people to remain calm while awaiting official results. Election observers say the poll did not meet international standards for democratic elections. The International Republican Institute, a U.S.-based monitoring group, reported vote buying, intimidation, inflated voter rolls in Frelimo strongholds, limited transparency in results collation, and other issues. Videos circulating on social media showed street protests in the northern city of Nampula on Wednesday. Newsmen were not immediately able to verify the videos. Mozambique police have opened fire on political protesters in the past, including after last year's local elections, according to human rights groups. Kenya's Senate opened a second day of hearings on Thursday ahead of a vote on whether to remove Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua from office over charges he embezzled public funds, stirred ethnic hatred, and undermined the government, which he denies. The National Assembly voted last week to impeach Gachagua, who helped President William Ruto win an election 2 years ago, but has been assailed by allies of the president over alleged disloyalty and a series of provocative public comments. Ruto has not commented on the impeachment process, while Gachagua has called it a political lynching based on falsehoods. If two-thirds of senators back the motion in a vote scheduled for Thursday evening, Gachagua will become the first Kenyan president or deputy president forced from office by impeachment, a process introduced under the 2010 Constitution. The second day of hearing is scheduled to include hours of testimony by Gachagua, who will respond to a litany of accusations laid out on Wednesday by a lawmaker from Ruto's coalition. The lawmaker, Mwengi Mutuse, said Gachagua had incited hatred in comments about ethnic minorities from his home region. Muse also accused Gachagua of acquiring properties worth over $40 million since becoming deputy president, despite reporting a net worth before entering office of only around $6 million. In response, Gachagua's lawyer, Elisha Ongoya, said the allegations lacked evidence and were based on speculation. Kenyan courts have declined to block the proceedings as Gachagua requested, but have said they will review the legality of the process once it is completed. The impeachment follows a realignment of Kenyan politics following mass street protests in June and July that forced Ruto to withdraw proposed tax hikes and shake up his cabinet. Ruto appointed several allies of the main opposition leader Raila Odinga as ministers, a move that was seen as weakening Gachagua's influence. George has declared that 7 new election rules recently passed by the State Election Board are illegal, unconstitutional, and void. Fulton County Superior Court's Judge Thomas Cox issued the order on Wednesday after holding a hearing on challenges to the rules. The rules that Cox invalidated include 3 that had gotten a lot of attention. 1 that requires that the number of ballots be hand-counted after the close of polls, and 2 that had to do with the certification of election results. Cox found that the rules are unsupported by Georgia's election code and are in fact contrary to the election code. He also wrote that the State Election Board did not have authority to pass them. He ordered that the board to immediately remove the rules and to inform all state and local election officials that the rules are void and not to be followed. Newsman has reached out to the lawyers for the state election board, as well as the 3 Republican members who had supported the rules, seeking comment on the judge's ruling. They could appeal, but time is running short with less than 3 weeks to go until election day. The state election board, which is controlled by 3 Republicans endorsed by Donald Trump, has passed numerous rules in recent months, mostly dealing with the processes that happened after ballots are cast. The former president narrowly lost Georgia to Joe Biden in the 2020 presidential election, but claimed without proof that widespread fraud cost him victory in the state. Critics, including many county election officials, argued that a hand count could slow the reporting of election results and put an extra burden on poll workers at the end of an already long day. They also say there isn't enough time to adequately train poll workers. At least half a dozen lawsuits have been filed challenging some or all of the new rules. The Democratic National Committee and the Democratic Party of Georgia had filed 2 lawsuits and joined others. Election boards in some counties and individual election officials in other counties had also sued. Roman Catholic Archdiocese of Los Angeles has agreed to pay $880 million to 1,353 people who alleged that they were sexually abused as children by Catholic priests, in the largest settlement by a U.S. diocese over decades-old abuse claims. Archbishop Jose Gomez expressed sorrow for the abuse in announcing the settlement on Wednesday. The Archdiocese began mediating the abuse claims after California enacted a law that allowed new lawsuits to be based on past instances of sexual abuse involving minors. California law and similar laws in other states have driven many large Catholic organizations to seek bankruptcy. In California, the Archdiocese of San Francisco and the Diocese of Oakland and San Diego have filed for bankruptcy to resolve similar abuse claims. Los Angeles Archdiocese reached its settlement without filing for bankruptcy, said the Archdiocese would be able to pay victims from cash reserves, investments, loans, and contributions from other religious organizations that had been named in lawsuits. The payments will not impact the Archdiocese's mission of serving the poor and vulnerable in their communities, Gomez said. Attorneys for the Archdiocese and the Plaintiffs' Liaison Council representing abuse claimants issued a joint statement on Wednesday, thanking survivors for coming forward with their stories and ensuring that similar abuse will not occur in the future. While there is no amount of money that can replace what was taken from these 1,353 brave individuals who have suffered in silence for decades, there is justice in accountability, the Plaintiffs' Liaison Council said in a joint statement. Gennaro Garcia Luna, the official who for several years led Mexico's fight against the country's violent drug trade, was sentenced to more than 38 years in U.S. prison for accepting bribes for the cartels he was supposed to fight. U.S. District Brian Cogan announced sentence at a hearing in Brooklyn Federal Court on Wednesday. Prosecutors had urged a life sentence for Garcia Luna, 56 years old, after he was convicted at trial in February 2023 for engaging in a criminal drug enterprise, taking part in various conspiracies and making false statements. They argued Garcia Luna took millions of dollars in bribes from the Sinaloa cartel, once led by Joaquin Guzman Lora, better known as El Chapo, and in exchange shielded its members from arrest and protected its cocaine shipments. In announcing the 460-month sentence, Cogan said Garcia Luna should have some light at the end of the tunnel, crediting him for his work teaching fellow inmates at Brooklyn's Metropolitan Detention Center. But the judge said Garcia Luna lived a double life with the harm he caused outweighing his good deeds. Garcia Luna served as Mexico's public security minister from 2006 to 2012. His defense lawyer Cesar de Castro has suggested Kogan should sentence him to no longer than the mandatory minimum of 20 years, noting he has already spent nearly 5 years in jail since his 2019 arrest. The defense had argued at trial that the former Sinaloa cartel members who cooperated with prosecutors and testified against Garcia Luna had falsely implicated him to try to reduce their own sentences. Before learning the sentence, Garcia Luna said in courts that Mexico's government and criminal groups had smeared him. El Chapo is serving a life sentence at a Colorado maximum security prison after being convicted in 2019 on drug charges. League of Women Voters of Wisconsin has called on the Department of Justice to investigate text messages they say targeted and threatened to discourage young people from voting in the November election. The League of Women Voters says it initially learned of the alleged text campaign on 10th October when the group received numerous complaints from voters who had received the text. Two people in their 20s who worked with the League of Women Voters also received a message, which reads, "Warning, violating WI statutes 12, 13, and 618 may result in fines up to $10,000 or 3.5 years in prison. Don't vote in a state where you are not eligible." The rules governing voter eligibility for college students are no different than for any other Wisconsin residents who are required to have lived at their current address for at least 28 days before the election to vote there. Some Republican-controlled states have sought to clamp down on student voting, drafting legislation to restrict the use of student identification cards as a form of voter ID and close campus polling places. Most lawmakers justify the measures as a means of preventing voter fraud. Others have openly complained that voting is too easy for college students who tend to favor Democratic Party candidates. In Wisconsin, Republican lawmakers proposed a bill in 2024 that would have required universities with campuses to provide information to students on how to vote from their home state. In the letter to the Attorney General, Merrick Garland, the League of Women Voters of Wisconsin and the non-profit organization Free Speech for People claimed that the text message had targeted young voters aged 18 to 25 and reached voters who were part of the University of Wisconsin system. Republican vice presidential candidate J.D. Vance has told a rally of supporters that he believes former United States President Donald Trump did not lose the 2020 election. During a question and answer period with reporters in Williamsport, Pennsylvania, on Wednesday, Vance was asked what kind of message he is sending to independent voters by not answering questions on whether he believes the results of the 2020 election. Trump, Vance's running mate and the Republican nominee for the 2024 race, has long maintained that his loss in 2020 to Democrat Joe Biden was the result of widespread voter fraud, a false claim. Vance has sidestepped the question in the past but told reporters it is clear to him what happened in the last election. Exhaustive investigations have found no evidence of fraud in the 2020 race. Still, Trump has continued to sow doubt in the election result and has indicated that he may be unwilling to accept the outcome of this year's race too. He has also threatened to imprison those he perceives as threats to the victory he anticipates for his campaign. "When I win, these people that cheated those sentences so that this depravity of justice does not happen again," Trump wrote on social media in September. Vance has been reticent about contradicting Trump's false election claims during the October 1st vice presidential debate. Moderators asked Vance, would you again seek to challenge this year's election results? His reply was indirect. "We are focused on the future," he responded. That was a theme he repressed on Wednesday in Williamsport. There, Vance told reporters that he is less worried about 2020 and more concerned about what could happen if Democratic candidate Kamala Harris, the U.S. Vice President, wins in November. Texas is due to execute a man for murdering his 2-year-old daughter despite doubts about his guilt. Robert Robinson and paroles rejected his plea for clemency. If the execution proceeds, he will be the first person in the United States to face capital punishment for a murder conviction linked to the controversial shaken baby syndrome diagnosis. Robinson has maintained his innocence in the death of his daughter, Nikki, of the execution. Texas Governor Greg Abbott could grant a one-time 30-day reprieve for Robinson's set execution, but he cannot give full clemency without the Board of Parole's recommendation. Gretchen Sween, one of Robinson's lawyers, urged the governor to grant the reprieve so they can continue to pursue Mr. Robinson's in one imminent execution. Calls have grown to stop Robinson's execution due to questions about the evidence of his daughter suffering shaken baby syndrome, a brain injury caused by shaking or violent impact. Robinson's supporters say doctors misdiagnosed Curtis' injuries as being related to shaken baby syndrome and that no evidence shows the girl died not from abuse but from complications related to severe pneumonia. One of those executed was Emmanuel Littlejohn, who was killed by lethal injection last month, despite a parole board in Oklahoma recommending his life be spared. Another man, Marcellus Williams, whose murder conviction was called into question by a prosecutor, was also executed by lethal injection in September. India has accused Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau of cavalier behavior amid the ongoing accused India of making a horrific mistake, alleging Niger's murder was part of an extensive Indian operation to systematically target Sikh dissidents inside Canada campaigning for an independent Khalistani state. On October 14, 2024, India again rejected claims it was connected to the killing of Niger, insisting that the preposterous allegations were a strategy of smearing India for political gains. Canada's top envoy to New Delhi, Stewart Wheeler, who has been ordered to leave by Saturday night, has said Ottawa provided credible, irrefutable evidence of ties between agents of the government of India and the murder of a Canadian citizen. Canadian authorities have arrested 4 Indian nationals in connection with Niger's murder. Billionaire Elon Musk's SpaceX has sued a California commission, nation's coastal development permitting authority. The commission on Wednesday declined to comment. SpaceX and its lawyers at the law firm Venable did not immediately respond to requests for comment. SpaceX, which contracts with the U.S. government and satellites deployment and other payloads, has launched Falcon 9 rockets from the Central California Air Base since 2013. The company launched 28 Falcon 9 rockets last year. It also accused the Commission of unconstitutional overreach, intruding on national security and other federal interests, and said launches at the base have had no significant effects on coastal resources. We will be back after this break. Do stay with us.
Entire communities are submerged, with people trapped inside homes and on rooftops cut off from food, clean drinking water and essential supplies. Health experts are warning of a potential outbreak of deadly diseases, and medical facilities are out of commission. 233-3955. Every second counts.
This is powered by Atlantic Television Network.
Thanks for staying with us. You're watching the broadcast of the international news in Atlantic Television Network. We are open for adverts, placements, bookings and commercials. And you can connect with us and watch us on ATN socials, Facebook and YouTube, Atlantic Television Network, Instagram and TikTok, Atlantic TV Network 1, X formerly Twitter, Atlantic TV Net. Watch us live on our website, atlanticnetwork.tv. Now to the rest of our stories. Former One Direction singer Liam Payne on Wednesday, after falling from the third floor of the Casa Sur Hotel in the trendy Palermo neighborhood of Argentina's capital, resulting in extremely Irish security ministry said in a statement to newsmen that Payne had jumped from the balcony of his room. Police rushed to the hotel in response to an emergency call just after 5 p.m. local time. He said, warning of an aggressive man who could be under the influence of drugs or alcohol. The hotel manager can be heard on a 911 call obtained by newsmen saying they heard a guest who is overwhelmed with drugs and alcohol. He is destroying the entire room and, well, we need you to send someone, please. The manager's voice became more anxious as the call went on, noting the room had a balcony. Payne had been vocal about struggling with alcoholism, posting a video in July 2023 to his YouTube channel where he said he had been sober for 6 months after receiving treatment. Representatives for Payne did not immediately return emails and calls. Dozens of One Direction fans flocked from across Buenos Aires to the Casa Sol Hotel after the news broke, forming lines full. Young women filming with their cell phones expressed shock and heartbreak as a makeshift memorial with rows of candles and bouquets quickly grew outside the hotel. U.S. President Joe Biden takes off for Berlin on Thursday for a rapid visit to discuss urges its Western allies in Mumbai. China opposes moves by any countries it has ties with to engage in official contacts with Taiwan, said Mo Ning, a foreign ministry spokesperson, at a regular news conference. The Taiwanese government opened its third representative office in India on Wednesday. Taiwan's official central news agency reported, adding to existing offices in New Delhi and Chennai. The opening came amid ongoing efforts from China and India to ease tensions and resolve conflicts on their Himalayan frontier, a point of contention that has strained bilateral ties. China, which views democratically governments, rejects China's sovereignty claims and Beijing's claim of the right to speak for and represent the island on the international related issues prudently and properly and refrain from conducting any form of official exchanges with Taiwan, she added. Special court in Bangladesh issued arrest warrants on Thursday for former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina and 45 others, including her close aides, on charges of crimes against humanity during a student 3 flights earlier this week. India's week, according to Reuters calculations. Vietnamese real estate tycoon was convicted on Thursday of 14 different 36,000 investors by issuing bonds illegally through 4 companies, according to state report. Indonesia's largest political party said it would support incoming President Prabowo Subianto, but it was unclear on Thursday presidency on Sunday can reach a deal with the Indonesian Democratic Party of Struggle, PDIP, where there would be no opposition parties in parliament, an unprecedented situation since Indonesia began holding direct presidential election. PDIP has been persistent talk about a meeting between PDIP Chief Megawati Sukarnopuntri and Prabowo in recent weeks. And Puan said one would hopefully take place but did not give a specific time. A top Prabowo aide said earlier this week that the two would meet without giving details on timing. Prabowo briefed his would-be ministers on Wednesday on economic and geopolitical issues as cabinet assessments continued. Cement charges that its Syrian subsidiary financed terrorism and breached European sanctions in order to keep a plant operating. France's anti-terrorism prosecutor and a lead plaintiff said Lafarge, which became part of Swiss-listed Holcim in 2015, has been the subject of an investigation into its criminal proceedings in recent French legal history. Investigative judges in Paris gave the order Lafarge faced trial on Wednesday. In a statement to newsmen on Thursday, Lafarge said it acknowledged the decision of the investigating judges. Holcim shares fell nearly 2% in late Wednesday, trading after the news before recovering a little to close 0.7% lower. Investigations continue into allegations that Lafarge was complicit in crimes against humanity, part of the wider probe into how the group kept its factory running in Syria after war broke out in 2011, said the anti-corruption group Chapa, which brought the criminal complaint against Lafarge. France's highest court in January rejected a request from Lafarge that charges of complicity in crimes against humanity be dropped from the innovative Dutch government is weighing a plan to send rejected African asylum seekers to Uganda, the country's trade and development minister said on Wednesday. Rinette Clever unveiled the idea during a visit to the East African country, but it was not immediately clear whether such a plan would be legal or feasible, or whether Uganda would be amenable to it. We are open to any discussions, Ugandan Foreign Affairs Minister Jeje Odongo said in an interview with Dutch broadcaster NOS. The plan follows a European trend to create return hubs outside the EU, housing rejected asylum seekers before returning them to their home countries. Hundreds of protesters in the western Serbian town of Loznica rallied on Wednesday to oppose Rio Tinto's planned lithium project in the region, saying its development will damage the environment. The protest comes after the ruling coalition led by the Serbian blockades of two regional roads on Saturday. Lithium, regarded as a critical material by the EU and the US, is used in batteries for electricity. In June, Serbia's President Aleksandar Vučić said mining could start as early as 2028. In July, Rio Tinto said the project would adhere to stringent environmental requirements, including legal and permitting procedures, as well as public consultations before implementation. Israeli airstrikes killed 11 Palestinians in Gaza City on Thursday, medics said, while Israeli forces sent tanks into Jabalia in the north, where Palestinians and United Nations officials expressed alarm over shortages of food and medicine. Residents of Jabalia said Israeli forces blew up clusters of houses from air by tank shells and by placing bombs in buildings before blowing them up remotely. Gaza's Civil Emergency Service said it evacuated several wounded people from a school sheltering displaced Palestinians that caught fire after being hit by Israeli tank shells.